Yeah. All right.
Yeah, something like that.
All right, everybody, it's 5 o'clock.
Yes.
It's 5 o'clock. I'm going to call the June 16th, 2022 Village Board meeting to order. Candy, can we have a roll call, please?
Beshin,
Here.
Velo,
Here.
Glish,
Here.
Jacobson,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Van Campen,
Yeah.
and Wunsch.
Here.
All right. We'll go down to 3, approval of the May 16th, 2022 Village Board meeting minutes. I'll take a motion in a second. Somebody? I saw Derek and Carleen. Any discussion, any changes, corrections? Okay, seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 4 is public appearances. Items are for discussion, possible action. 4A is review financial analysis of additional $600,000 borrowing for a new library project. So, you want guys to come up?
Yeah.
All right, Jeff and Jenny.
So first I want to just tell you, Jennifer sends her love. We sent her on vacation. She's had this vacation planned a really long time. And we told her she had to go on vacation and that we would be here, so she sends her love.
So, Martin, what do you want? Do you want them, how do you want to start?
So we did the analysis of the additional 600,000 in borrowing. That's in your packet. I had a couple notes on that in my memo. I guess at this point we're looking for further direction from the board, or if you have more feedback or questions for the library team, we can do that as well.
Okay. Anybody, questions or for the team? Anybody?
Well, I guess not. You're gonna talk, right? They're gonna,
No, I don't think so.
no?
Well, I can talk if you'd like me to. A couple of things happened since the last time we were here. I know that we've got a question from Phil that we can answer if we have time. I apologize, I'm gonna have to cut out of here at like 5:40. I'm gonna have to run out the door wherever we might be in the discussion, and maybe we'll be done long before that. But there was that question, and then Derek wanted some more detail about the Part A of our VE list, and I believe that we had that in the packet as well, where we filled in, you know, the rest of the numbers of the things that the library was making decisions on, value engineering out, and some corrections to the estimate. So we have that information, and then there was also some questions that came out of our building committee meeting, which was, you know, if we find additional funding, what are the priorities of additional things that we would put back in the building above and beyond the geothermal and the PV. So, but I think if we can separate the issues out, the funding to offset the geothermal and the PV at the 600,000, if that's something that the majority of the folks can agree on, maybe we can get that piece out of the way, and then we could answer some of the other questions, and if I run out of time tonight, we could continue those discussions at the next meeting. So I guess, are there questions about the solar, the PV and the geothermal before we talk about whether or not we can get funding to offset that?
Anybody? Not seeing any. Okay. So, all right. To jump into the money? All right. So I just want to mention this when I was looking at this for the board. What I would like us to consider, if in fact we decide that we want to go forward with the 600, I mentioned this last time. We did 2 grants. The 2 grants are out there for $1 million apiece. And I whenever I do any kind of project or fund, I'm always looking, obviously, we're always looking to save money. So I would like us to consider that we could borrow the $600,000 if, let's say, we don't get one of the $1 million grants. And the reason I'm saying that, I'm just thinking about all the projects we got, all the money we're spending, that one of those $1 million grants could take care of this 600. Either way, we could make the motion. If we don't get any of the grants, then we would borrow the money. Regardless of that, the money would be there for the library. But I just want us to consider that we still have those two out there, and the possibility is that we wouldn't have to borrow the 600,000. Yeah, Amanda.
So I like the way you're thinking.
'Kay.
I mean, I think that the library needs to know that the money for whatever we need, you know, that is gonna be there. And I think as, you know, as a board, we definitely want the geothermal and solar and all that. My concern is that, we had a library building committee meeting last week, and we saw with our eyeballs what the library changes would look like. And it was kind of shocking. I really feel pretty strongly that we need to put back some square footage to get the library that we wanted. And I'm open to ideas about how to do that, but like the children's space got cut by quite a bit, and that is a huge portion of the library that gets filled, and there's some things that we need to consider putting back. One of the things that ended up not making it was a gender-neutral or family bathroom that was accessible for the community room for after-hours events. And I feel pretty strongly that that needs to be put back in, and that would cost roughly $90,000. And, you know, there's things that according to these numbers, you know, we've agreed to put back in the geothermal and the solar, but now having seen actual plans, what it would look like, I really feel pretty strongly that we need to put even more than the $600,000. I mean, I'm happy to hear that there's grants out there, but if those $1 million grants don't come through, I feel like the village board needs to be prepared to back that up with more borrowing even.
And that's what I was saying, Amanda.
Okay.
So the motion that I was thinking is that we would borrow the money if we did not get the grants. So the 600 would be there regardless.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't get the grants, then we would borrow. If we did get the grants, then we wouldn't have to borrow the 600,000. So that's kind of my thinking.
Right, I just meant above the
Yeah.
600,000.
So this is news to me about now
Yeah.
it's more than 600.
Right. Do you want to chime in,
Yeah,
Jen?
go ahead, Jen.
She was there.
I was in that meeting on the library building committee, and I think it was a different library that we saw, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because we do need to be thoughtful in how we plan things, and we're not just building size to build size. But again, what really stuck out to me was that, you know, we've overwhelmingly heard from the community that we need this community room for people to have, and yet if we don't have a gender-neutral bathroom that's accessible from the community room, then we're not making that space accessible to everybody in the community. And so that I feel very strongly about seeing how we can make that addition, because I just truly feel like that is an important component when you're offering a community room, to offer facilities that everybody in the community can use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to elaborate too, I want to be really clear that these changes that, you know, of all these cuts were totally based on the increase in price and construction costs. This isn't poor planning on the library's part or anybody else. I want to be really clear with the public. These are circumstances beyond our control. Building costs right now are crazy expensive, and we can't delay the project anymore. And it's unfortunate and it sucks, but I feel like, you know, to get the library that this community deserves and that we wanted, that some of the funding, and I'm not suggesting all 4 million, I'm suggesting certain pieces of it need to be put back in. And so I'm thinking tonight we for sure approve the geothermal funding if we don't get a grant, okay? Something along those lines maybe, but I think as a village board, in order to give them the direction they need, we need to make some sort of commitment that we're willing to borrow more, and we can look at it at a future meeting, but have itemized things that we'd like to add more funding back, you know, to make it accessible for everyone in the community. And, you know, we could have line item, you did a great job, Jeff, putting the prices by all these items, and I think we could, as a board, look at funding even more to put back the things that we consider essential.
Right, and what might be helpful, and again, we don't need to get too far down the road with this discussion if it's not going anywhere, but it might be helpful to give the board the list of priorities of things that we would put back in what order, which is slightly different than what's on the VE log, and even when you're looking at that VE list, you don't know what priorities are from our group, you know, what we feel are important to put back first, second, and third. But before we get to that, I know Phil has a question which was the opposite of that, which I think we should answer that question as well, which was, you know, right now we're around 30,000 square feet where we've cut out 5,000. And it's been extremely difficult to get there. We've identified the list of items things that we've decreased, and then there's things that have gone away, like the unconference room and some meeting rooms and that family restroom on first floor. We have them other places in the building, but at some point you don't just lose carpet and ceiling, you lose real rooms and real uses. So it's been difficult. So Phil, your question was, if I understand it, is that you know, from a mathematical standpoint, and I certainly understand your thinking. My whole construction career has been trying to get people to understand that we can only build for you what you're willing to pay for. Yeah. If there's any chance of having profit in that equation. But in this instance, you know, if we cut things back too far, and your suggestion was maybe another 5,000 square feet, which would get us to 25,000. And, you know, just doing the math on that, it generates a significant amount of dollars when you take that space out. And then we could repurpose those dollars and we could put some things back with that. But, you know, having struggled with that question for a week and thinking about the things that came out of our building committee meeting, it's going to be really, really difficult to get that space out without taking things out of the building that will be so noticeable. And you know, to know that we're going to deliver a project on day one that is too small to serve the needs of the community now, or significant items that the community wanted to have in the facility are going to be missing. And, you know, we've got a growing community, and, you know, how far into the future are we going to realize that, you know, we cut it back, you know, just a little bit too far. So, I know where you're going with it, but I think that the response is that it just seems like it's a mistake that's going to be too far in that direction. And so what we'd like to do is we'd like to figure out how to keep the space functional, have it do what it needs to do for the community, and then figure out the other side of the equation is where can we come up with some more funding. And I understand that financially maybe the village isn't in a position that they're the ones that are able to shoulder all of that load, and we're going to have to figure out other ways to help come up with that funding. But I think we need to focus on that part of the solution before kind of the worst case scenario, which would be, okay, now we have to, you know, cut this thing back to where we feel like we're not delivering to the community what it needs or wanted to have. So that's the answer. It's not a good answer, but that's the answer.
Right. Great.
To that
Thank
question. And then, you know, just the first two things that were on the list of what would we put back if we had more funding are space. So, you know, right away, the first thing we want to do, there's about just under 2,000 square feet that came out of the children's wing. That would be the first thing that would go back. And then we want to add a sliver of the building on the two-story building. That would be a chunk on first and second floor that would be room for the young adults and the adult collection, which is on second floor. And adding that space allows us kind of room in the middle where the family restroom would go, and we'd be able to make that community room function better and all of that. So, you know, that it kind of offsets your question where that's the thing we want the most is a little bit more space.
Yeah, Mike.
So how much money is that?
Well, the list is between, you know, what we talked about the last time around is that we had a current construction budget of around 10,000,001, and then this estimate that there was things in the estimate that didn't need to be in the estimate was around 15,1. So that was a $5 million problem. But there's quite a few things in that estimate that, one, through communication, you know, we got out of there, didn't need to be in the estimate. And then there's other things that we've learned through this process that, you know, we can probably live without those items. So the total, if we were to put everything back, you know, the way that we had it a month and a half ago, would be about $3,750,000. So it's somewhere between 600,000 and that number. We have kind of, here's the list in priority, and we go down the list. If we get a $500,000, we get to here. If we get $1 million, we go to there.
Numbers 1 and 2 on your list.
Numbers 1 and 2 on the list of the space.
Is that this 1 million?
Well, the children's area, to put that back, is about $700,000. The room that we would add on both floors to expand slightly both of those floors of 1,700 square feet, that's $595,000. And then after that, we get back to the exterior materials and the glass and some of those other things that, you know, I think will be noticeably missing or will kind of affect people's experience of the space, you know, those types of things. So, and those two together, those next two items are another $250,000. So, you know, that would be a pretty good chunk to get us back to where we're feeling comfortable with what's happening. And then, you know, we could keep going down the list from there. Phil's question about, you know, can we find some square footage to maybe offset to get the steel structure back? We've spent time since the last time we were here, and the structure is going to end up having to have steel in it just by the function of it. There's spans and certain things that we wouldn't be able to accomplish with wood anyway. And then what is wood, it will be, you know, engineered material. It won't be, you know, regular SPF wood that we would be using out there. So we're starting to feel a lot more comfortable about the structure. It isn't going to be cut back as far as it would have been because there's still going to be some steel in it, but we're feeling better about that. So the, you know, adding the structure back is almost to the end of the list because it's just one of those things that people that are using and experiencing in the library don't necessarily know what's behind the walls. And if we can get away without spending that money, we would put it to other purposes.
Yeah, Mike.
Okay, so the question that I have, because I agree, I won't see what's behind the structure, but I am going to end up, if I live long enough, paying for the maintenance of that building. What does this add to maintenance costs, and what does it take away from longevity of the building? Anything? I mean, I know there's wood structures that have been around hundreds of years, right?
I think the way that we're designing it now, the movement and the shrinkage that happens with the wood structure, we're trying to figure out how to manage that. That's the biggest problem, and it's not that significant. If you're doing drywall repairs once a year because you're dealing with some of that movement, but if we can get that handled and feel comfortable that we're minimizing that, something that would save maintenance dollars in the future would be getting back to some of our exterior materials so that we don't have, you know, painting and those types of things that need to happen on a regular basis, or even replacement of certain siding materials after 25 years or what have you. So if we could get to that level where we could get some better material on the exterior, then maybe we would all be more comfortable long-term.
Can the exterior siding be upgraded in the future when this one wears out, if we went down that route?
It can be, but, you know, planning that we're gonna have money in the future to do what we don't have money to do now.
That's my personal finances.
I worry about that plan. It's the pay me now or pay me later, and it seems like you're gonna be paying me later, but anyway, yeah, I think those are the ones that would be more of a more expensive maintenance cost, would be exterior.
So here's what I'm gonna suggest. I mean, we had the 600,000 on the agenda. I think we should deal with that. Because I think, if we want to add additional now, then we're talking about additional analysis. What's it gonna do to taxes, things like that. And so because this was the first I heard about more stuff. So I think at a future meeting, we need to sort of see what that implications, what is that price tag? I think we should deal, because it was public, everybody knows that we're talking about the 600,000. I think we should deal with that, and then if the board wants more stuff added, we'll have to see what that's gonna do. Phil?
There seemed to be, looks like you were about to say something. Go ahead.
Well, there's two things that we'd like to get out of tonight so that we can keep moving forward with the design. One was the 600,000.
Right.
The second one would be if we can answer Phil's question that that we agree that we're not gonna reduce the square footage further, because that would send us into a whole nother redesign loop. So if we know that we're holding serve with our 30,000 square feet design that we have now, and we have the geothermal, we can plow forward with the design, and then we can come back in 2 weeks when we have time to get information to the board and have people think that through. And the things that we're talking about, adding from that point forward, like upgrading exterior materials, that can happen later in the game. There's things like that we are going to put on the bid form as alternates, and even right up until the day or even during the course of construction, we could add some of those things back to the equation. But if we're gonna have a serious discussion about reducing the square footage further, we better do that right now, because that would throw us for a loop.
And I appreciate the information, Jeff, and I don't necessarily feel that we want to go that way. Frankly, I think that not to take anything away from anyone's expertise, but we're doing a lot of speculating on what it's actually going to cost, because we don't have any bids yet. And when we get those numbers back, then that type of tough decision need to be made. But I don't think we're there. I'm not there right now.
Sure.
Just to be clear, I think first of all we need a motion on the floor.
And this is related to the 600,000.
Well,
And-
whatever motion anyone would like to
Yeah.
make.
So I do want to.
I guess to clarify is, if we're going to talk about increased spending on the library, and someone has numbers for that, we might as well get it out now, rather than 600,000 now, and then 2 weeks from now, someone shows up and says, "Oh, we need another 1.5 million." Well, there's not a lot of point talking about $600,000.
I think, Bill, we don't know what that is, and I think we
Well,
need to do
someone
the
may-
analysis
there-
too.
There's been other comments, other board members may have numbers.
Yeah, refresh my memory, do we have a number for adding back the 2,000 or so square feet for the children's area?
Yeah, that's
I'm sorry.
700,000.
That was the 700, thank you.
And I think I understand what you're saying, Phil, but if we can separate the issue, because when we left last time, the commitment to the geothermal and the PV was something that, we have to do that. And the hope was that the board was gonna directly fund that. We offset that, we put that issue aside, and that's taken care of. And then then the rest of this, we can discuss going forward. It's really separate discussions. That's where we're hoping we could get that pinned in so we could keep moving with all that mechanical design. And then, you know, by the next board meeting, we would be able to share more information and we'll have more time. You know, we could discuss all of that then, if that's okay.
I mean, it's the exact same place. If we're gonna add in for the geothermal and leave it at that tonight, I would consider that motion.
Okay.
So-
But just to be clear, that motion will not be committing to spending any future money, borrowing any additional money until we have that discussion.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So we do have a framework that we've created in making decisions for the library with the MOU with the library board.
Mm-hmm.
So if the decision is to do an additional 600,000, it should be a direction to make a draft of that change in the MOU, and then the MOU will come back for approval here and approval with the library board. So everybody's on the same page that
Yep.
we're gonna borrow an additional 600,000 with whatever potential contingencies there might be related to that.
Great, thank you.
So Carleen had her hand up first.
I'd like to make a motion that we borrow 600,000 for the geothermal and the PV, and we do not reduce the size that we've arrived at this point.
Carleen, would you consider my idea about the grants?
I think that's separate.
I don't know if they would be included in the motion, since we could subtract that later. That might be a Martin question, but.
Well, I think we need to give direction for the change in the MOU. So my understanding of the condition is that the grants, the two grants that we have, if we receive those grants, that the first place that they would go would be to offset the cost of the geothermal and the PV, so that we would eliminate the need for that borrowing. And
Yeah.
we would be more than happy to have that condition be part of the motion.
And I was saying, I think we should have that. I think we should have that in there.
Can you state that again, please?
So,
Let Martin do it.
I think what we could do is, I think we could have some language and we can put it together, but I think it would be something to the effect of if the village receives grants or additional revenue to offset some or all of the $600,000, the village will borrow the lesser amount of that.
And to be clear, we're
That
talking about borrowing for next year, correct?
Correct, yep.
Yeah, so we would, we would know about the grants, because I think we're looking at borrowing in March, and we would know about those grants.
We should know about one of them in October.
Yeah, in October.
The other one is
Okay.
March for the first one.
Okay. So Carleen, is that your?
Okay, so I'm going to try to restate this motion. Make a motion that the board approves borrowing 600,000 with the condition that if we receive the grants, that it would offset that borrowing or pay that borrowing down, or not need to borrow as much, however you want to phrase that, and that we do not reduce the size of the current proposed library.
Okay. Can we get a second?
We'll draft that as an amendment to the MOU,
Okay.
and it'll come back for final approval to both bodies.
So we don't vote now.
So you vote on the motion, you're giving
Yeah.
direction right now
Yeah.
that we're going to
Okay.
work on that and bring it back to you.
All right, so Carleen made a motion, a second? All right. Amanda was first. I saw her hand go up first. Okay, any other discussion?
I move to amend the motion on the floor as follows.
Okay,
To minimize the impact of this borrowing on taxpayers, the board directs staff to take the necessary steps to sell the lot at 249, 267 North Main Street as soon as practicable.
okay. Martin?
Okay.
Do I get to reject anything?
No.
Well,
No.
let's just get it, let's get
There has to be
it,
a
I want to
second.
make sure we get a clarification. Martin, is that?
So if there's no second on this motion, if there's no second on his motion, your original motion still stands.
A second.
So now that motion is on the floor.
Okay.
The amendment is on the floor.
The amendment is on,
The amendment with the original?
Nope.
Nope,
his amendment.
Okay.
is
Just
on
the amendment.
just to sell the lot.
Just to sell the lot. I think that we purchased that lot for the library. The library clearly has budgetary shortfalls. It's a source of funding. We may not get even 600 for it, but it still is a source of funding to offset this potential borrowing.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Other discussion before we vote? Yeah, Amanda?
I was just gonna clarify, I was under the impression too that we had purchased that lot for the library, but that is actually incorrect. We bought that piece of land as a village, and then later we decided to put the library there. So I just wanna be clear about that.
Noted.
But we had already requested that Vanderwall do a study to, and come back to us with all the uses for that potential lot. And so I feel it's premature to say that we sell it before we understand all the ramifications of that.
Actually, I consider that a feature of this amendment because it can save the $15,000.
Okay. Yeah, Carleen?
I feel like we're starting to conflate some really touchy issues into one, and I am really uncomfortable with that motion. I feel like there's a lot of discussion that doesn't get had then, and I am very uncomfortable with it, and I oppose it. I think they're two separate things, and they should be dealt with separately.
Okay, anybody else? Yeah, Mike, and then Jenna?
Yeah, whether that land gets sold or becomes a park or whatever, I think we have to have a discussion about what the community wants on that property and how big it is. And we have gone down the path of 100,000 square foot buildings on that lot. We have gone down the path of 35 square foot buildings on that lot. They haven't fit. They haven't fit the neighborhood. I have no idea what we're selling this for and what you intend to have a developer build there, whether it be a quick trip or a large apartment complex or one small house. I think it's a premature thing, and I'm opposed to having that until we have a discussion and a more thoughtful consideration of what to do with the last remaining green space in our downtown area.
All right, Jenna?
I was also going to say that I had been looking forward to having community conversations about what to do with that space. I heard a lot of different ideas, and I think there are things that we need to be talking about as a community. And so, having been looking forward to those discussions, I will also be opposing this amendment.
All right, anybody else?
So
Yeah.
I'm not your village attorney, but I don't know that the public could have any knowledge that this would come up on a meeting based on the language on the agenda. So my advice would be not to not take this motion,
So,
not act on it.
Table it. Okay. Phil, you okay with that? We table it?
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
defer to
yeah.
Martin's
Okay.
advice.
Yeah. And Derek, you second table? Okay, we'll go with.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, Martin's. Okay, so what do we do anything with it?
Well, there's a motion, there's a
Still a-
motion on the
All right,
floor.
so we gotta
Still the
kill it. All
primary
right.
motion.
All right.
The main motion.
All right. So the amendment, we're voting on the amendment.
So,
No, just take it.
Now?
No.
All right, it's off?
The amendment's been tabled.
Okay,
Now
so
you
the-
may vote
so
on
the
main
original-
On the main motion.
The original was to borrow the 600,000.
Right.
so we should
And
be,
keep the size of the
Yep.
one.
we should be clear when we're tabling it as to when. So from what I'm hearing is you want to table it to a specific time when you're discussing the property and its community involvement.
I think it'd be simpler if I withdraw the amendment.
That would be my preference.
Yeah.
All right,
I thought it might.
all right.
And then if the second also will let it.
Yeah, I'll withdraw.
All right, so
But
it is withdrawn. All right, so we're back to the main motion. And Carleen, I'm gonna make you say it again. Come on, the
Well,
whole thing.
from the start.
Yeah.
I make a motion that the village, that we authorize the village to borrow the $600,000, and also that it be subject to the grants that are out there. If we get them, then we wouldn't need to borrow as much. And that we keep the library size that has been decided on at this point based on that borrowing and no further cuts to square footage.
Okay. Amanda, I think you were second?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
All right. Any, yeah, discussion. Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, just one thing that I'm really struggling with on this whole thing is the fact that we're not even a shovel in the ground already talking about the budget coming up short and additional borrowing, and I think the people in the village are gonna really take issue if this becomes an every couple of month thing. Hey, we wanna add this, we wanna add this, we want another million for this, so much like the lot size and promise of 4 acres and then moving to 7, going from 12 million to 13 million, 14 million, I would take with extreme caution.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay.
Have a roll call vote, please.
You already voted.
Oh,
Was,
Oh, like
I can
that.
still call the roll.
Do you want me to
Yeah.
call the roll? I can
Please.
call the roll.
Okay.
All right, Peterson,
Yes.
Wunsch,
Yes.
give me a second here. Lish,
yes.
Meshin,
Yes.
Belo,
Actually, I'd like to change my vote to no if I can.
Yes, you can.
that was a no?
Yep.
from you?
That is
Alright.
correct, that is a no.
Van Campen,
No.
did I miss anybody?
You did.
Jacobson.
Yes.
You guys are making me work for my,
All right. So the motion does pass. Okay. Okay. All right. Ready to move on? Let's go to 4B, more money. Water and sewage system revenue bonds, Series 2022B, in the amount of $1,715,000. Jeff, is that you? Or, oh, Ellers is here. Okay.
Hello, good evening. My name is Lisa Trubatuski. I am with Ellers. I do not have a formal presentation for you today. I'm just noting that when Brian was here for the pre-sale of these revenue bonds, it was scheduled to take bids this morning. However, last week we received notification that the markets would be closed due to the new federal holiday of Juneteenth. So before you tonight, I think it's actually letter C, is to do a parameter sale, and that would be what you are authorizing tonight. This is similar to what you did for your 2022 AGO issue. If you have any questions on the process, I'd be happy to go through that. Otherwise, I'll take any other questions.
Anybody? Jeff, anything to say?
No, we've gone over these, at least for what the borrowing is for, but this is more the formality of getting to the point where we're ready for the sale, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
So originally, we would have taken bids and we would have had sale results tonight. However, the market's not open, so we're switching the sale to Wednesday. And then you would just be authorizing staff.
Okay. So, Martin, which one are we doing? We need to do 2 and 3 on the
Yeah, so
revised?
do 2 and then do 3.
Okay, all right, so let me just read it. Scope of engagement for Quarles and Brady LLP for the proposed issuance of $1,715,000. Water and sewage system revenue bond Series 2022B. Staff recommendation is a motion to approve as presented. So we're looking for a motion and a second. Phil and Carleen, any discussion? Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, can you explain the parameter of purchase price from 98.75 to 110%? What's that?
That would be if you had either a discount or a premium bid. So you're setting where you won't go as low or as high.
All right, anybody else? Okay, so we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that one passes. And we'll do 3, which is the resolution, number 2224, a resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed 1,715,000 water and sewage system revenue bonds, Series 2022B of the Village of Oregon, Dane County, Wisconsin, and providing for the payment of the bonds and other details with respect to the bonds. Recommendation is to approve as presented.
Move to approve as presented.
All right, Phil, you get a second? Amanda? Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, you're all set, easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to 4C, which is the 2021 audit, annual financial audit. So you are on.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you guys had anything
Oh.
you wanted to say or want me to just jump right in.
Jump right in.
Okay. So good evening. I'm Tara Bast. I'm with Johnson Block and Company. We have the draft in final draft form to present to the village board tonight. There should be copies of various documents in your packets. There is a summary report that just hits some highlights and hits on some of the key factors that we like to point out in the financial statement audit process and what's included in the audit or the financial report. You have the audit report itself, which is a nice, like 100-page report, so I'll save you from paging through that tonight. And then we also have our standard communication letter. So I know you have a packed agenda tonight, so I will do a short summary, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to go into more detail about everything or anything. So in the summary packet, which is what I'll primarily be going over, you have kind of the contents of the audit report. So really the first thing that's in the audit report is our independent auditor's report. That is our work product. We are issuing an opinion on the financial statements. So our draft report is issuing an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, which means we feel the financial statements are free of any material misstatements and presented in accordance with the necessary accounting standards. So it's the highest level of assurance and the best opinion to issue in the financial report. Then it just goes through a brief detail of the contents of the audit report. You have several sets of financial statements of the different funds of the village. Then you have notes to the financial statements, which help support the financial information and provide some additional narrative. Then you have required supplementary information and other supplementary information, which includes budget to actual schedules, as well as some other required information under accounting standards related to the village's participation in both the Wisconsin retirement system and the life insurance program through the state. So those are just required schedules under certain accounting standards that are required to be there. So if you go to the page 3 of this summary, is a condensed version of the general fund's financial statements or general fund's balance sheet, as well a condensed income statement or statement of revenues and expenditures. So really when looking at the general fund, it's the main operating fund of the village. So really when we get down to, how did the village do for the year, we look at fund balance. So in the middle of that page there, you'll see detail of general fund balance. Made up of non-spendable, committed, assigned, and unassigned. So that unassigned fund balance is roughly 31% of next year's operating budget. So that's just right around where the village's fund balance policy would like it to be, that 30%. So that 30% result is after the proposed budget amendment, which is included in the financial results, of taking the excess above that 30% and transferring it to other funds within the village's budget. And Lisa can Lisa and Martin can go over that a little bit more, but that's included in the financial results. So prior to, at the bottom of this page, prior to including that transfer in the general fund, you had an increase in fund balance of around $370,000 in the general fund. So then doing that transfer of $650,000 shows a decrease in fund balance in the general fund of $281,000. But that's again to meet your fund balance policy of being closer to that 30% and using the excess to transfer to other village funds. Page 4 is just additional detail or the split out detail of what makes up general fund balance between those different categories. Most of your fund balance being unassigned. Then page 5 lists out the various different funds of the village and the ending fund balance between the end of 2021 versus 2020. A lot of the significant changes in those fund balances or increases are primarily related to unspent bond proceeds. Borrowing debt over the last several years that have just gone unspent that you'll spend as you go through those projects. So some of the big ones are the library, the new village hall, and then some road work in your street projects funds. And then really the next several pages are just some charts and graphs specific to the property taxes over the last 5 years and the property tax roll. I won't go into those in too much detail. It's just a 5-year trend there. Page 8 is the budget, or is the general obligation versus allowable debt capacity calculation. So under state statutes, the village is allowed to borrow up to 5% of the equalized value. So it takes a look there over the last 5 years of what the general obligation debt allowable limit is versus the actual outstanding debt, general obligation debt of the village, and what the capacity to borrow is. So at the end of 2021, your percent capacity available was just over 55%, almost 56%. Then on the next page, the next 2 pages go into more results for the village's utilities, so the water and sewer utilities. Taking a look at the utility operations, the water utility showed an operating income of just over $180,000. The sewer utility, a small operating loss of just under $13,000. Then in the middle of the page looks at utility cash flow. So it's important to look at a couple different metrics when you're looking at the results of the utilities, the water and sewer utilities. Operating results, income or loss, but then also cash flows, because there's things that can affect cash flow in the utilities that don't necessarily show up in the operating income. So this looks at cash flows from operations, what cash in and out it takes to operate the utilities, cash flows related to capital and related financing, so improvements and infrastructure improvements, and then non-capital items, which are minimal, and investing activities. So water utility had a net increase in cash of $532,000. The sewer utility had a net decrease in cash of $416,000. But if you do look at the bottom of this page, there's a summary of the operating cash for each of the utilities, and there's a pretty healthy utility operating cash in each of those utilities. And that percentage there is a metric that I know, or a metric that I know both the PSC and bond rating agencies look to see, what's your operating cash as a percentage of your operating budget in the utilities. So those are healthy metrics there. The next several pages are just some statistical trends and charts and graphs for the utility as well as the general fund. So I won't necessarily go through those unless there's any specific questions on those, but they're just 5-year data of revenues and expenditures in the general fund. I don't know if Lisa or Martin, you want to address more the budget amendment that's included in terms of the transfer, or if there's specific questions that anyone has for me. Yeah.
I have one question for you. On page 11, you show the general debt service going from 1.2 million to 505,750,000 roughly. We didn't spend that much last year on debt that I was aware of. I mean, we certainly borrowed a lot, but we didn't pay that much in interest or anything else. So how did that debt service go that high?
Yep, I believe that is related to paying off some
Borrowed.
debt.
When we start paying money, so we start.
Let me just
Not
take
that
a look
much.
here.
We borrowed that much, but that's not in a payment.
Here, but this shows, no, you borrowed the total amount, not the payment.
It's debt service.
I think a portion of that was refinancing,
Okay.
potentially. Does that sound right, or?
Yeah, last year we had to do the same thing we did this year.
Yep.
We did the GO note through the local bank, and then we refinanced that through our
Yep,
bonding
that's what it
later.
was, yeah.
So it looks like we spent $5 million, but really we just refinanced it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
we
I think
paid it
that's,
out and then,
that's
And
the
sucked it back
three
in. Okay.
million dollars, was what was borrowed with the local bank note,
Right.
that was refinanced with the long-term bonds.
Okay,
That's
that
correct.
makes sense. then.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Anybody else? So what, obviously I've seen these every year. I mean, and I did go through all of it, 'cause a lot of numbers. I mean, it looks like we're in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, your general fund, definitely had positive
Mhm.
results for the year. That's your main operating fund. I mean, most of your other funds, your TIF districts, are based on, the increment that is earned in those TIF districts, and the debt service that's borrowed to pay any debt, for improvements that were done in those districts. But your general fund is healthy. You've been able to, the last couple of years, use excess funds to transfer to, your other special
Mhm.
revenue funds or capital project funds to kind of, set money aside or assign funds, not within the general fund, but within your special other funds, for future purposes. So I think you were able to do a sizable transfer last year as well.
Yeah, last year we did $100,000 into our equipment fund.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody? Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, just following up on this a little bit more. So when I originally went through this, Martin, you had in your little intro that there was $2,807,150,000 on unassigned fund budget, which I didn't see anywhere in here. I saw references to $2,157,000 and change. But you're saying that's already, the transfer out of there is already computed into this, so
Yeah, that would
that
be the
transfer
difference.
would be 300,000 for the village hall and 15,000 roughly for the discussion for 249 North Main. What that leaves is 334,000 that you want to transfer to, I think, the building fund. Does it make sense for that to go to the library?
certainly could.
I mean, that would reduce borrowing right out of the gate, and if we get our money later, we can look at how to deal with that,
Mhm.
the grants.
Yeah.
Or,
Jen-
I guess, my thought process on this too is, so that 300 and some $1,000 that we transferred into the equipment fund, we could use that to do small purchases next year, vehicles. The police department and public works are both allocated $10,000 for small equipment. It could be used for the police squads that we borrow, or that we buy next year. So that was kind of where I thought the money would go. I mean, if you put it towards the library, then we're just gonna have to borrow for
You're,
the small equipment, so.
I think regardless of where you put it, you're offsetting some type of borrowing.
Right.
Whether it's the library or
Okay.
you either use it for that or you use it for that, and you borrow less for
Mhm.
whatever you put it towards.
Yeah, Jenna?
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. As we talk about what to do with that, I would just like to propose, we had the folks representing the splash pad here a few weeks back, and we know that they have been working tirelessly to make that project come to fruition, and so far, we have offered a resolution in support of the splash pad, but I feel like the resolution would be, or that would be strengthened if we would put some dollars towards it. I'm not thinking a lot of money, but I know, even if it's $10,000, I think that'd be greatly appreciated to a project that the community has been waiting a very long time for. Throwing that out there.
Okay, yeah, Phil?
I'm not saying these are good or bad ideas, but I think, as in earlier, without these specific items being on the agenda, I don't think we can assign any.
Correct.
Well, and my suggestion in my memo was, and I've heard some feedback from some of you on some different ways that we could use this. I know there's some folks from the pickleball who are here that have some interest. And so there's a lot of ways that this money could be used. And so I know for Lisa, I know she wants to wrap up the audit so that she can get on to some of her reporting that she needs to do.
That's due July 1st.
That's right. So I know we want to get these, we know we're going to do the Village Hall project, the North Main Street planning this year. We can make the adjustment in the 2021 audit and be done with that, and then we can have a discussion on the remaining funds as soon as the next meeting, and we can go from there.
Or during the budget process.
Or during the budget process, good time.
Yeah, Phil?
I would motion to approve the resolution as presented and accept the 2021 audit report.
Okay. Carleen, second. Okay. Any other, yeah, Mike?
Yeah, I still have a
discussion?
couple things
Yeah,
of
go ahead.
discussion here. Page 15 references the village board appoints the governing body of the Community Development Authority of the Village of Oregon. What the heck is that?
It's a sleeper fund.
Yeah, I know. Dormant, non-existent,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
still on the books.
Still in the books, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still in the books.
There's recommendations in this report further down for updating policy, procedural documentation, development of federal compliance and control procedures, implementing new guidance on leases that are, I guess, done the end of this year. What is staff's intention on all of those recommendations?
So we are working on that. That's part of our goals and part of the village board's strategic plan. I know that we've kind of set an internal goal of getting 2, 3, or 4 of those policies done by the end of this year.
Yeah, we have 2 of them that are, well, one that's done and another one that we're working on right now. They just haven't come to the board yet.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second to approve Resolution 22-25, 2021 Budget Amendment Number 3. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tara.
All right, we're on 3D. Tax incremental financing application submitted by Becker Professional Services on behalf of JAD Partnership LLC for the Bodie Commercial Development, Coffee Shop with drive-through window, brew pub with microbrewery and food, bicycle repair, maintenance, and rental, and bicycle pump track at 101 Concord Drive. All right. You're on, gentlemen. Oh, well.
I'm not really sure. What am I, what am I, Elise?
Oh,
Want me to
all right.
start? I can
Yeah,
kinda
Elise,
go
go
through my
ahead.
memo, and then you all can chime in and answer questions and introduce yourselves too. That'd be great. So you all might remember this project came before you last fall. At the time, we referred to it as the Bike and Brew, and since the Bodie Howe name has been given to the project, so aka the Bodie. But the mix of uses here on the site next to headquarters includes brew pub with microbrewery and some food offerings, a drive-through window for coffee and food, bicycle repair, maintenance, rental, as well as some indoor-outdoor seating. And then there's a stormwater pond that's on a separate parcel north of headquarters, which has been proposed to have a bike pump track for testing out bikes, and it would be available for the public to ride on. I know that Jamie and Jeff have met out on site and talked a little bit about what those improvements might look like with the eventual goal that that pond might be. Ownership of that might transfer over to the village in the future. So some of it, the improvements would be related to cleaning up the pond and making sure it's in good working order before handing it over to the village. But there's sort of 2 separate requests, one for the building and then one for the pump track. If I understand correctly, the TIF request for the pump track is a request for an upfront grant for construction costs, and then the TIF request for the building would be a pay-go, more of our traditional setup for payback of the grant over time as the value of the property grew. So the $185,000 is the request for the pump track, and that's that upfront cost. This would be in addition to the $55,000.
Not for the pump track.
Sorry. For the site, so for the building. This is, a lot of this is related to site prep and soil remediation costs. And if you remember in the fall, you all gave a grant for $55,000 for surcharging the site. That work has been done, but further work to prep the site for the actual building footprint now that it's been designed is contained in that $185,000 request. There is a separate $220,000 request for the engineering, cleanup, repairs, and construction of the pump track and the pond, which is already there. While this is not a developable parcel, the applicant has made the case that the increment generated both by headquarters and then the new Bodie Howe Brewing Company would support investments made on the pump track, but acknowledges that, of course, we know that that pond site is not a it's taxable, but it's not a developable parcel. So we went through, similar to the last TIF request that was before you for Adam Coyle's project, went through some of the elements from our application and looked at some of the goals that this project might meet. The but-for test would be further analyzed by Ellers if you all decide that you're generally in support of the project and would like to move it forward. The applicant has agreed to pay for our financial consultants, Ellers, to do the but-for analysis, and so that would not be at any cost to the village, but would move the project forward. We, of course, want to make sure that the board is in generally support of the project or elements of the project before spending that time and effort with Ellers. Let's see, what else do I want to cover? This is providing a suitable building site on a previously unbuildable piece of land, which is one of the goals of our TIF project. There's expected about 30 jobs as part of this project, and Jamie, maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit too when I hand it over. The current value of the site next to headquarters where the Bodie Howe Brewing Company would be is about $90,000. The projected value after improvements would be about $2.37 million. This is not a housing project, so any conversations related to affordable housing are not relevant here. In terms of sustainability, it would implement improved stormwater management on the property, and then also the bicycle amenities. The local operator who would like to reestablish a presence in the village and offer some more bicycle repair services, classes, and the just ability to rent and be able to purchase a bike in the village as well. The site's already served with public utilities. The pump track is expected to draw visitors from out of town. Whether or not they would stay overnight is for further discussion, but that's a unique feature that we certainly don't have here, which would bring people in to enjoy that amenity. And then other goals just related to building the tax base, providing jobs, developing the site, and providing another gathering space, especially on this side of town for the village, are some of our TIF goals that are met by this project. So again, just bringing forward the information provided by the applicant at this point. Happy to answer any questions about what the process looks like, and then applicant's here to answer questions about the project, and then if you all are supportive of the project, at least initially, we'll move it forward to Ellers for their analysis and then hear back from them on the but-for TIF review, and then have an opportunity to actually vote on preparing a TIF agreement.
Okay. Questions on the board? Mike?
Yeah, so the 185,000, grant, what exactly would that be for?
That's more of a general site remuneration. I mean, when we did headquarters, we realized that that is an old farm field. It is clay. The soils are pretty porous. What we did originally is we threw enough soil on it to actually create a compaction. So now we could put a building on it, but that doesn't deal with any of the other issues. The raising of the thing, we have to raise the site by about 7.5 feet as we get closer to the pond. We have to bring it over. We have to undercut the entire lot so that when we put a parking lot on there, the parking lot doesn't start to sink. We pretty much know how much that costs because it costs about $350,000 for those processes at headquarters. This site is a little bit smaller, so probably cost a little bit less, but as you guys just talked about with your library project, things do not get cheaper over the last 10 years. So we're pretty clear that, I mean, like that part of our TIF request is, I mean, almost verbatim what TIF was created for and why it was created in that TIF district, because it just really isn't buildable without a lot of help. So that portion is, that's pretty much what that's for. I mean, that portion of the TIF request is just to get the building up, make it so that we can put parking lots on it, make it so we can undercut it so that it drains properly, and that the building doesn't sink and we don't crack all of our foundations.
Are you looking to put any solar or any other sustainability features into your building?
We actually do have some bids for solar. I actually think it might be potential, but again, that was actually one of our original plans. I mean, you actually have the bids from them, but we're running into the exact same problems that you guys are running into. It's the longer we wait on this, as we see another, 0.75% hike from the Fed and 10% inflation every day that we are not building, we are not getting a shovel in the ground. Got to make some choices. I mean, I would hope to. I mean, we actually, one of our original things, one of our original designs for the building was to actually make it around electric bikes, because that's kind of one of our main points of doing it here, and we thought making a name that connected that and then doing the whole eastern side as a grid would be pretty cool. We're still looking at it, but it's an upfront expense that we're just not sure if we're going to be able to handle. But the way the building was actually designed is to hold solar on the east side. So yes, but
Okay.
I can't guarantee I'm going to be able to do it.
Regarding so I totally get the funds for the building, and seems to me to be a reasonable use of the TIF funds. So financial analysis on that, I would be 100% in favor of you going ahead to do that. The other lot, I have a lot of questions about. This won't increase the tax base of the village at all if that money is put into that, correct?
Especially if that pond ends up getting transferred to the village ownership in the future.
Can I make a point about that? I mean, it is actually, my goal with that is to use the tax base that I've created through both of my projects, then use this, because obviously as part of the TID, it's not part of the general fund, but I would like to give the whole thing back to the village and turn it into a city park once it's completed. So basically giving the city a pump track park as part of the process without having a lot of other, with me being privately building it, getting it all going, and then once we get to a point where Jeff feels, hey, we got this all set, then I just give that whole parcel back to the village, and then you have a city park with bike pump track and trails that people can use. So that'd be the goal.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I appreciate you, talking about the tax increment of the headquarters, but, that but-for thing is already flown, and that the headquarters is built. That really shouldn't be part of our consideration of this. So it's got to sort of stand on its own, and I'm, as much as I can see the value of a pump track, I'm also thinking, we've got a lot of bills to pay too. So I'm a little less.
Well, the way that I tried to design this, that lot when purchased by me was 101 Concord. I split it through the CSM, so it was all connected.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end, the total increment created by both of these projects will be about $67,000, $68,000 a year. There was almost, headquarters is already prepaying into that TID, so it won't be costing the taxpayers anything. Even if it was about, the only thing that it would cost would be the interest on anything borrowed, which would then actually still, if this project happened and we did it, you're still up about $650,000 at the end of this when the TID closes. So the general fund is not affected, and you actually still end up with more money at the end, and you get a city park.
You talk about the work there mitigating upstream drainage issues. What does that refer to?
Just across the street from me, obviously, you know, there's a lot of construction going to the south and through the Foxborough. And if you remember, Foxborough used to kind of be underwater quite a bit, and they tried to work on that. Well, now we've just kind of slid that problem to the condos. So now we have to create, Jeff would probably be able to explain this better, but the way that I understand is that we get a lot of standing water. You need enough head pressure to actually flush it to go down. So although my property is fine, if we could actually drop that stormwater detention pond by about, what, 12 inches or something like that, that would actually then create a better flow upstream, so we'd solve some city problems, because right now he's saying that you have to go back, what, every 6 months and clean them out. So if we could do that, it would actually then help the village, because then they wouldn't have to do that, because it would all go in. We have almost 3 feet of drop that we could drop to get into the creek, so it wouldn't affect the pond at all. So we'd just be helping everything down the way.
Okay.
Is that it, Mike? Okay, anybody else? Yeah, Jenna?
I'm sorry, can you tell us what a pump track is? Or maybe it's just me that, I
No,
Googled it, but I was like, I don't know if that's right.
Sorry, pump tracks are essentially like a bike skate park. You know how we have the skate park, but instead of having like where you bring skates to it, you bring bikes to it. And so what you do is you design it so that the premise is that without pedaling, by using your body weight, you pump up and down and you gain speed. And then you go around like berms and go over. The kids like it, man. It's fun. It is super fun. I even still do it. It is a blast. But it's you can put your kids. Oh, thank you. So that is actually, is that the one in Fitchburg?
That's the one on Google.
Well, Aldous Leopold. So I just biked by it yesterday. So I went over there on Father's Day, and I went there with my kids, and I took them to the Aldous Leopold pump track. And so it is essentially one of these. You just take your bike and you zoom around on it, and you go up and down, and you have fun. We were talking with Jeff, because if we do then give this back to the village as a public park, then potentially the eastern edge of headquarters, there's the village's stormwater retention pond, and there's a pretty good sized space on the north side that's pretty much just not being used for anything right now, but it's part of that. And they could combine that and actually make it into like a, you could expand it and make it larger, and more people could be on it at once. Because you do have to kind of follow an order, you know, to be safe, but the bigger you make it, the more people can use it.
Okay, thank you. And you had mentioned that the location wasn't buildable without a lot of help. Can you go into more detail about what that means?
The building project or the pump track?
I'm not sure which project you were referring it. You made the comment to, so.
Oh, well, so the Bodie, or the actual 6,000 square foot building that we're looking to build on the lot. So we did a grant that we put a surcharge on it, so we put down however many tons of material to actually squeeze out all the water. But to actually build on it, we have to raise the site, undercut all the parking lots, undercut that, and that's the part that is not currently buildable.
But, I guess, why? Is it because it's?
If you built it now, what would it?
Too wet, or?
It would sink, and what you'd end up having is because you dig down below the frost line, you put in your foundation, and then if you haven't actually done this other project beforehand, you will get sinking, and then as one side moves, you'll end up with it'll crack your foundation.
All right. Jimmy, let me ask you about the surcharge. Was the surcharge grant, was that successful?
Yeah, it's on there. I mean, it's been on there the whole time. I mean,
Okay.
but that is essentially, you just take all the dirt and you just throw it on there,
Yeah.
just compress it. So that's
Okay.
not doing any of this other work, that's just
Right,
making it
yeah, I
so-
understand
yep.
that, yeah.
So,
Okay.
yep, and that's working.
Okay.
I guess. It actually, they have done all of the stuff. We're at a zero. So
Okay.
you put in plates in the ground, you dig them down like 8 feet, you put plates there, you put plates on the top, and then you I don't know how they do it, but they do it with a chart, and then you gotta get the chart, and the lines move a little bit, and then after a while, they go flat, and when they go flat, you can build a building.
So it worked like it was supposed to?
It did what it was supposed to do,
Okay.
at least that portion.
All
of it,
right.
yes.
Phil, you had your hand up.
No, a couple of things, thank you. In the documentation, it mentions wetlands or adjacent wetlands. Is that to the east of this property? Is that what I'm seeing here as an environmental corridor, or?
That's the stormwater, that's the village's stormwater retention pond area, so it's a
Yeah.
man-made wetland.
Right, is there?
I believe it's to the east.
Yeah.
Kind of northeast of this property.
This.
Yeah, between Max Creek and.
Okay, and that's a permanent environmental or
Yeah.
wetland? Okay.
Yeah.
My next question is, parking. Will, it sounds like the intent was to share the parking with the current headquarters. Does that meet, will that meet the village code for number of spaces?
There's flexibility, again, within the village code to have shared parking depending on hours and use of buildings. We actually are doing a planned development zoning on this property. We actually tabled this at the planning commission a couple weeks ago, so the planning commission asked them to further reduce the parking because of the shared parking situation and to shift the building to the north, so it's a little bit further away from the sidewalk and from neighbors, and provide a little bit better flow around the drive-through. But the parking is one of the requests that they're going to make to, in plan development, you have the ability to ask for flexibilities from the zoning code, so they're asking for flexibilities for setbacks, for impervious surface, and then some of those numbers might change based on the shifting of the building, but the parking requirements will be a little bit less than what would be required, but that's something the planning commission is aware of and is comfortable with.
Okay. Lastly, in the proposed area for the pump track, pardon me, I had to look it up too, Janice.
I have to say, my pictures did not look like what Jeff showed, so if you have some Googling.
Anyway, is there not a ditch there right now, right to the direct north of headquarters and south of Victor?
Yeah, let me.
Is that holding water right now, and how deep is it?
Yeah, so this is about as good as, I think what we have in the packet, this is about as good as what we have here. So, just to put everyone in where we're at here, this is the Culver site, this is the gun shop right here, Cousins is right here, and then headquarters. The Bodie Howe Brew Pub would be on this portion, this is Concord Drive. A lot of people don't even know this exists over here because it is terribly overgrown and you don't even see it from the street. And when this whole area was developed, and I'm meaning this whole, when Chuck Elliott developed this whole area over here, which included the apartments and the townhomes and everything like that, and these lots here, this pond was put in to serve all of that development. And there were some things, honestly, that were never followed up with, I think, as far as agreements. I mean, Jamie didn't even realize that this was in his name for a while. But there is a pond over here that serves the stormwater for that area. And I think it could have been designed or built better. That's kind of.
I didn't build it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm not, yeah, I want to be very careful on this. It's not, it wasn't, something, I think this is something that Jamie kind of.
Yeah, I mean.
Enter into, and found out later. And so that's where the difficulty with this is not only is Jamie responsible as a headquarter owner for the maintenance, care, upkeep of the pond, but so is everybody else over here unknowingly, semi-technically are responsible for it. I say semi-technically as we can't find a signed agreement that says that. We find draft agreements, but we don't find anything signed. So the feeling all along is that this is an area, well, actually, I started getting back to this right along here, Phil, is Butter Factory Creek. Okay, and it is a spring-fed creek that goes all the way up to South Prairie Parkway, where it feeds right behind the insurance building. Comes down here, goes right along here under these culverts, and then out into, eventually into Badfish Creek as it goes down there. It's a constant running, nice spring-fed creek. It's very clear, clean water, but it's not very deep. It's
inches,
4 to 6 inches in places. But that's this area along here. This pond is separate. It's up here, and it actually has an outlet that is not very efficient, and it eventually dumps into the creek here. But the feeling is if this could get cleaned up and operating in a much more efficient and better pattern, and it was maintained, we could look at an option if it got up to a point where it was at the right construction and everything, and able to be maintained. that's something the village could look at taking over, just to alleviate future concerns of who would pay for it in the future anyways.
That's where I'm going, is,
Yeah.
you know, I can tell you from being a patron, that if you stand out by your dumpsters and look over the edge there, there's standing water, right?
On the east side or on the north side?
On the north side.
That's
Yes,
the pond,
that's the
yeah,
pond.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
pond.
And that will remain?
That
Yes.
will remain.
It'll
Okay.
drop.
That's
We-
what they're gonna clean up.
That's what we're gonna drop, well, the goal would be to.
Drop
go-
that elevation by about 10 to 12 inches, and then the pond would probably be cleaned out.
Because it would
somewhat.
actually start to flush. Right now, it's too tall, it doesn't, it just sits there.
Right.
So if we can get every time we have any rain event, then everything will kind of come down and it'll all flow into
Drain
it.
into that.
And everything would be better.
Yeah. Okay, great, I understand now, thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, anybody else? Let me get Amanda and then Mike.
Okay, this is sort of tangentially related to the TIF, but it's just a question I got asked and I didn't know the answer, so I'm gonna ask, and I understand Candy, maybe you're the one to answer it. I'm curious about the liquor licensing, how that would work, because having a bar with liquor and beer and having a brew pub license are two different ones, and I thought you couldn't have two different kinds of licenses. So
Well, a brew pub is handled through the state, and you can have a,
that is allowed. Okay, all right. Thank you for answering that.
All right, yeah, Mike.
So with the stream to the north and the pond in the middle of the pump track, are there safety concerns? I mean, if someone hits that pump track and goes flying on their bike, are there safety? I mean, how far setback is this from the waters?
Well, we haven't started to design it yet, but most of the area of the pump track would be to the far west. That is a pretty good sized space, closer to Wolf Street. The way that they built the pond is that it has pretty good slopes going obviously into it to create it. So we wouldn't put a trail on one of the slopes, like on that off canter area going towards the pond. So that would be more where you just have the straights with the bumps, and that would just be on the top. I mean, anything that involves a bike or skates or anything could have danger.
Yeah.
I mean, but
Clearly.
we're not going to do it where we're intentionally launching people into the pond. So I mean, we will do everything we can to keep them as safe as possible, and But yeah, I mean, we can definitely. We had already had the engineering firms kind of look at it, and they've already kind of laid out what they thought it could do with the elevations. They shot them with a drone, and they just kind of gave us some ideas of what we could do. And that's actually when I approached Jeff and asked him if we could expand kind of into the village's space, kind of like, hey, let's make this bigger and like get like a long run and kind of more berms, and I don't know, so.
Yeah, and I think we would have to see their information from their engineers to have a much better comfort level with that as well. Just to make sure that A, it fits, B, it's relatively safe. I mean, nothing is, we've got a skate park, and that obviously has its own concerns. And we have some immunity from that, correct, Martin? I mean, as our recreational immunity that we're covered under as a village. But, yeah, and you may get into this and find out it's
Well,
not
that's
feasible. I don't
kind of
know.
the goal of the way that I laid this out with two different TIF requests. So like, I feel like the one for the building is pretty straightforward. Like we were talking
Yeah.
about, it's like, hey, this is some soil issues, this is what TIF is for, here you go. The reason why we split it into a second one is I was like, yes, I realize that there are some issues with how it is presented in terms of how it can do, but it is one project that is happening, and there is enough increment there to completely pay it off. It's not like there's any issue of it going too far and there being like, oh, we didn't ever get to the end of the payoff. I mean, not calling out other projects, but I know there's been some questions with other projects where like, are you gonna actually make that much back? This project is going to far and exceed from when I purchased it and what it's going to make back by the time that TID closes. The village makes a lot of money. I mean, this is what it's for. This is why TID exists. And this piece of it, my goal was to wait and have us build it, so we're a private enterprise, so we can deal with some of these issues if they come up in terms of safety and these things. And then if we get to a point where then I come and I talk to Jeff and he's like, all right, we like it, we can take over this, because then that takes it out of our hands, then we can then donate it back, and then it becomes a city park. And that way there's kind of on both, because I have more flexibility than you guys have, because I don't have to call a meeting and say, does everybody feel comfortable with this? I can just like go, hey, somebody crashed, let's make that turn somewhere else, and we can do these things until it gets to a point where it's like, all right, we all feel comfortable with what exists. So I have a little more flexibility. Like, I also have the flexibility to try to bring in other people to help with it, you know what I mean? I can get volunteers. Right now, we reach out to Mad City Dirt, and they're like, well, we'll help you design it, because that's all they do. They do things like at, I don't know, is anybody mountain bikers here? Do you know what Mad City Dirt is? Okay, they are a company, they just are people that go to these different trails like Quarry Ridge, and they build the trails. And that's what they do. And they're like, you know, so it's all volunteer. They, you know, go to Camrock, they go to all these different places. We can just have them come help, you know, if they want to.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions? So Elise, if I am correct, you're looking for direction and a motion from the board to allow this project to go to the next step, which is the financial analysis. Would I be correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I can make that.
Okay, so Phil's making the motion. Anybody want a second?
I move to authorize the village staff consultants to proceed with financial analysis and negotiation with the developer on the provisions of this request.
Okay. Second? Amanda? Okay, any other discussion? Okay, yeah, Mike?
So when that comes back, the financial analysis will be joined together for both of them, or will it be two separate financial analysis? One's
Two.
each
I think it
separate?
would still, yeah, be separate.
I did it that way in case you were like, we do not want to do this pump track, but we feel like the building is valuable. If that's the way that you wanted to go, you could.
Okay.
So we would not be held up, if I put them together and you were like, you had that same emotional, like, feelings, and you were like, I don't want these to be connected, I couldn't go forward with the building until we knew what was going on, and then that would be a delay, whereas if we do it this way, if you liked one but not the other, maybe you're like, I'd really like you to build a pump track, but you're not building the building. I mean, we probably wouldn't go ahead with it, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, if you went one way then the other way, we could.
To be perfectly honest, I'm a little bit iffy on the pump track. I just don't see the financial benefit. I mean, I do see some financial benefit to the village. I see some quality of life advantages for the village. So I'm not 100% opposed, but I have to be sold on that. The other one I see is much more straightforward. So as long as you're comfortable going forward with that
That's why I split 'em.
caveats, then go ahead and you know, support the financial analysis.
All right, anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second to go to the next step. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, Jamie, you're all set.
Thanks, team.
Thank you for coming in.
Okay. We are 4E, public comment. This part of the agenda allows members of the public to provide information to the village board, including items both on and off the agenda. So anybody all right, come on up, Jerome and Mike. Want to tell us your names and your address, please?
Certainly. Jerome Klein, 650 Heidi Way in Oregon. And I am Mike Barone, 631 Bergamot Boulevard here in Oregon. So we did include a two-page informational fact sheet. I don't know if you all had a chance to read it.
Yep.
I just want to hit a few summary points and clarify one error that we had in the memo. So basically, for those of you that don't know, pickleball's just a fast exploding sport. We brought it back from California when we were out there wintering 7 years ago, so we brought it back to Oregon in 2015. We've been playing on the Oak Street tennis courts with the help of the village staff. We've been allowed to dual stripe those courts, and we use portable pickleball nets. And we've also, in collaboration with the Oregon School District Community Rec Department, we've grown the pickleball community to about 300 players. We play every morning. There's a group that's out there playing Monday through Friday. We have 2 open community nights, and so there's a very active group that plays. Unfortunately, those courts are in deteriorating condition, and just as a background on the Oak Street courts, I think Jeff did submit a grant that the village board approved to go forward to get those refurbished, and if that grant comes through, that hopefully will be taken care of sometime in the future. But right now, the courts out there are not in good shape, and we did get included in the overall J.C. West Park rebuild project when that was submitted and approved by the village board back in 2019. We started the process of fundraising along with the other 7 or 8 sports groups with the hope of getting to $500,000 of fundraising collectively as sports groups. Of course, things went pretty much on hold when COVID came about. I do have one clarification in the memo that we put together. Lisa clarified for us that we were rounding up. We thought we had $8,700 that we had raised as a specific pickleball group. We were only at $7,700, so that $9,000 is really $7,500 because a couple of people, after the project was phased from phase 1 into phase 2 for pickleball, a couple of people actually came back and asked for their money back, so we're actually at $7,500. But as I'll talk to you a little bit later, we have gotten some positive results from our fundraising activities since then. So as the bids came in for the J.C. Park West project, obviously as we've all talked about with other projects already here tonight, construction costs are up. So that original $4 million estimate is 5.8, and the project was phased. Pickleball unfortunately got phased into as yet an unauthorized and unapproved project, so it's got pushed out to the future. So we obviously had a very disappointed pickleball group. We've met as a core group to kind of re-energize the troops to see what we could do to really kind of beef up our activities and contributions to try and get this project back on track. Ideally, what we're here asking you for tonight is to pull that back into phase 1 and take advantage of the construction that is going on right now. But as a core group, we've submitted several grants. We're seeking in-kind donations. We've actually secured additional donations. The memo talks about 21,000. We're up over about 23,000 now since this memo was put together last week. So things are continuing to move in the right direction, but those donations are predicated on getting pickleball pulled back into phase 1. So again, we've got a group that did put in some money and time and effort initially 3 years ago when the project was being, when the fundraising took place, but they don't want to commit any additional dollars until we know we can put back into phase 1, if that's at all a possibility. So we're collectively, between what we raised before and new donations, we do have that $30,000 still intact. So we've raised about 17% of the pickleball construction cost, which is about just under $180,000. And when you look at 17% of pickleball contributions, that compares very favorably to the overall project fundraising, which was about $270,000 of the $5.8 million. So that was about 5% of the overall project cost was fundraised. So we're sitting at 17% here today, and we continue to pursue other avenues. So basically, our request is to see if there's any way we could consider pulling pickleball back into phase 1. Why? The current courts are in deteriorating condition. J.C. Park Phase 2 is not approved and will require additional financing, and that timing is uncertain. And some of our active pickleball community are choosing to leave Oregon. All the communities around Oregon are putting in dedicated pickleball courts. Stoughton, Verona, Cottage Grove, McFarland, all Sun Prairie, Middleton, everyone's putting in dedicated pickleball courts, and we feel like we're losing an opportunity for both social, economic, and health and wellness opportunity for the Village of Oregon and its residents. So we think we could also take advantage of, again, a very favorable current bid that was received as part of a contract A that went out when the bids for the J.C. Park project went out. We looked at the J.C. Park pickleball costs as compared to other projects that we're aware of. And our costs are very favorable. Sun Prairie, those courts are about $61,000 each. McFarland is about $56,000 each, and the Oregon bid is about $30,000 each. So it's very, very favorable. And again, our donations that we've, again, are contingent on being pulled back into phase one are roughly about 16.5%, 17% of the overall pickleball bid cost. So for those reasons, we are here to respectfully request your consideration to include pickleball back into phase one and put this on a board meeting agenda at your earliest convenience, so there could possibly be some action taken on this.
Right.
yet this year.
So Jerome, you're asking the board to officially put it on a future agenda, where, like tonight, we can't take any action
Correct.
on it, but
Correct.
there potentially could be some action from the board. So that's what they're asking for, to be formally put on the agenda.
Can I ask a logistical question? I'm wondering, like, Jeff, what could potentially be done? What stage are we at? Just,
Well, we're still in the stage of earth moving activities out there on site. That won't go on terribly much longer. What we would have to do is go back to the contractor and ask for updated pricing under a change order that would bring that under the contract. They have the option to say, well, our original pricing is still good, or pricings have gone up, or I'd have to remobilize certain pieces of equipment, or whatever. They'd have to evaluate that. But,
okay.
you know, it's an ongoing construction project, so it's just like any other change order. We'd have to find that out and bring that in.
Okay, thank you.
So it looks like we can do this under consensus, but Carleen, you have a comment first.
I'm wondering if we put it on a future agenda, can you find that out for us before that, so that we
I'm
don't
actually
have to
having a
then
meeting.
delay
I'm
it a
having a
little?
meeting yet tomorrow with the contractor, and I'm going to bring that up just to
Great.
see what kind of.
Because otherwise, we're in
Right.
another delay situation.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
So Candy says we can just sort of do it as consensus, if everybody is okay with them being put on a future agenda to discuss.
Can we put it on the next agenda? The next
Yep,
meeting?
I think we can.
I think bringing up on the future agenda items.
Okay, all right. There you go.
Ah, wink, wink, okay.
Yep, all right, so it looks like everybody's okay with that? All right, guys, we'll put it
All right,
next.
excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to applaud the.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, it's trying hard enough to listen to Jamie Bush. I cannot imagine sign language to change to Jamie Bush.
Somebody made a comment and I
Oh,
absolutely missed it.
no, I applaud you because I can imagine it's hard enough to understand Jamie Bush when he's talking, much less try to sign as fast as Jamie Bush is signing.
I'm working hard here, but it is my profession.
It's okay.
All right.
Good. Yeah.
All right, anybody else in the audience want to speak under public comment? Okay. All right, I'm not seeing none. All right, we'll move on. How are we doing on break time? Are we okay, everybody? It's 25 to 7. Do we need a break, or can we still go a little bit?
I can go a little bit.
We'll go a little bit?
I'm going good.
You're going to go now, all right.
Well, why don't we
You go
take-
ahead, Phil.
Well, we could take 5 now, too.
All right, let's take 5 now.
Let's just
Okay.
do it now. I'll
Yep.
go to.
So we're on 5, which is proclamations and announcements. 5A is upcoming meetings and events. We had information in our packet.
Just one thing I want to
Yeah,
note.
yeah.
There will be the delay in the meeting, the next meeting, because it's July 4th that Monday, so we'll have the meeting the next Monday on the 11th.
On the 11th, July 11th, okay? All right. Let's go to 6, report of village officers. 6A, village administrator report was in our packet. 6B, village department head. Anything from Rachel? Yeah, Rachel's got something.
I just want to invite everybody in the community to the ice cream social at the senior center, July 7th from 5 to 7 p.m. That's open to everybody. It's a great opportunity to come out. We have barbecue and hot dogs and build your own sundaes and island music with Bahama Bob and his steel drum. So come
Okay.
listen to the sounds of the Caribbean. Take
All
a
right.
night off from dinner.
Okay.
Thank you.
What time is that again, Rachel?
5 to 7. Thank you.
On the 7th.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Chief, you have anything?
Amanda.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. Village board comments, 6C. I know Carlene has got something.
Yes, I do. I just want to note that today is a federal holiday. It's the second annual celebration of Juneteenth. And Juneteenth is a holiday that actually goes back to 1866. It was first celebrated in Galveston, Texas, when the enslaved African Americans there finally found out about the Emancipation Proclamation, and it's been celebrated ever since. And I would like to move that if the village board meeting falls on June 20th or the whatever in the future, actually it probably will, that we do like we do for 4th of July or Memorial Day, and we move the village board meeting ahead a week or so that we are actually recognizing that holiday.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Thank you, Carlene. Okay. All right, we can go to 7, communication miscellaneous business. Items are for discussion, possible action. A is approval of vouchers in the amount of $452,108.07. If I can get a motion in a second, we'll take it. I got one from Phil, and I saw Derek's hand. All right. So, questions for anybody? I have one. It's 137.92, and I don't, Jeff, it might be yours. It's a Wisco. Charge for $5,510.53. Just
Yes.
wondered what that was, please.
That's for the right-of-way purchase of additional land that we need for the intersection there
Okay.
at South Prairie Parkway and Janesville Street.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Yeah, Mike's got one or two or something?
Yeah, a few. I assume the others right around 13,792 are also for that intersection purchase. 1225. There's a few truncated items for Berkey Truck and Equipment.
Burke Truck and Equipment, yeah, 1225, okay.
What is that?
Oh, yeah, that's, so we agreed to pay half of the Burke is who upfits the dump truck that we were ordering for the snowplow and the bed and all
And the
that type
salt.
of stuff. We actually saved, is it 15%? 12 or 15% by prepaying half now.
Okay.
And so that's why we did that.
Okay, and number 7303, Badfish Creek Drainage District. What's that about?
7303?
Yes.
That's the, yeah, that's the work that we're doing with Rupert Milky, our engineers, for the Lerner lateral work and everything as part of the drainage district area over there.
Okay,
Yep.
that makes sense too.
Yep.
And one last one, 13,788. There's a Middleton Construction Schematic Design Level Estimate.
13,788. Schematic design level estimate. That's a great question.
They're looking it up.
It's probably in the,
Is that a late one?
no, it's in the credit cards.
No,
It's not?
because it doesn't have the credit card number.
I feel like we should play the Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff, you can make something up, too. We wouldn't know.
No, I'm trying to remember what that is as well. All right, well, we can go other questions while you're looking for that.
All right, while they're looking, anybody else? Is that it,
Nothing
Mike, for
for
you?
me, no.
Anybody else? All right.
For 7,500.
Do you want to tell us next time,
Yeah,
Lisa?
well,
So
I
you
will
look it
find
up.
out and I'll send you an email about that, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I don't know, would that be something for the library?
Well,
You guys can check and let us
Yeah.
know. Okay. All right, so we got a
Oh, yeah,
motion.
because it was already paid. It was paid on 6/9. I think that might have been one for the library.
It might be one of the
It might-
pricing estimates.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, I
the
think-
basis of their bid that they've been working on. I think that was the company who did
That
it.
had perhaps have to do with the value engineering.
Yep.
Probably.
Does that sound good, Mike?
Sure, I'll buy it.
Sound believable?
It wasn't us, or it wasn't, yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
because there
it
is
was
schematic design at this point, right? Nexus designed it all.
Schematic design level estimate, that makes sense.
All right. All right, we got a motion and a second, and Candy will take a voice vote.
Wunsch,
Yes.
Glish,
Yes.
Bealow,
Yes.
Van Campen,
Yes.
Beshin,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
and Peterson.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go to 7B, which is minutes from the Oregon Public Library meeting on May 11th, 2022. Information only was in our packet. 7C is the grant agreement with the Wisconsin Arts Board in the amount of $4,100 for the Village of Oregon Public Art Program. I just want to tell you, I did the grant for this, 33 pages for $6,000.
Yikes.
And you see we got 41. There was a lot of applicants, but you know what? It's $4,100. So unless I'll take a motion in a second.
Move to approve as
Okay.
presented.
All right, Phil and then Carleen. Anybody have any questions on this one? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 7D is request to purchase tactical helmets in the amount of $7,839 and body camera helmet mounts in the amount of $395 using auction sale funds for the police department. Recommend, I don't think, Chief, probably don't need to say anything, or unless you want to.
No, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. I'll take a motion in a second. Derek and then Jenna. Any questions for Chief on this one? Yeah.
Hey, just to clarify, this is the helmets and the strap, the holder for the camera, but not the cameras themselves. They'll
Correct.
transfer from the officer
Yep, so
onto
as you can
wherever.
see right here, this is the mounting system for my shoulder. But if I were to have a helmet on, there'd be a separate mounting system, similar to this, it just clicks in.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 7E, review well number 6 drilling and construction bids and consider accepting bid and awarding contract to municipal well and pump in the amount of $422,506. Staff is recommending approval. Is this, Lauren, is this yours? Do you want to say
Yep.
anything to us?
I'll answer any questions.
And can we get a motion in a second? From Mike and then Carleen? All right, questions? Go ahead, Mike.
The cost came in, the estimate, or the bid came in at $92,500 over estimate. Where is that money funded from?
There are water impact fees that will cover a portion, well, yeah, that will cover.
So
a
this all
portion
out
of
of the
this.
water utility?
Yeah, this is all the water utility, yeah.
And fund balance if necessary.
But there is a quite a bit of, water impact fees out there to cover this cost that we
Okay.
need to spend. There's a certain time frame to spend those, so now's the time.
Yeah, Phil, question?
I would just add that I had the exact same question, almost verbatim.
Really?
But Mike beat me to it.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're on to F, is review lead service line replacement bids and consider accepting bid and awarding contract to Five Star Energy Services LLC in the total amount of $948,000. Staff is recommending to accept base bids A and B and award the contract for the replacement of the lead and galvanized water services lines to Five Star Energy. Get a motion, a second? Yeah, Amanda, and then Derek. This is that thing that free to homeowners, which is great. I had somebody send me an email, and they thought the village was paying for it, and I had to send a quick email and said, nope, this was one of our grants, so this is a good thing for the village. Anybody, any questions? Yeah, Phil.
Do you have a rough number of how many this we're actually replacing?
Lauren might.
Oh, that's an excellent question. I believe it is about 80 of the public and 75 of the private, although I could have flipped those two numbers. That
Just
said,
looking
it's
for
about that.
Okay.
And some of those are the same, I would say, continuous stretch, so
Yeah.
2 parts of one. Some are one and some are the other, so we really have quite a blend of those.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, okay. G is resolution number 2226, 2021 compliance maintenance annual report for the wastewater treatment plant. Who's got, anybody, it was in our packet. Jeff or Lauren, do you want to say anything or about it? It was in our packet. You wanna-
Yep, it's, the only thing I would say about it is that we did drop a little bit on the phosphorus, which I figured might raise some red flags for folks. This comes back a little bit to an item that you saw a few meetings ago, in which we had put a task order for Town and Country to have us begin planning with a local customer that was discharging chemicals that they ought not to be, or perhaps ought not to be doing it the way that they were doing it. This is why that became such an urgent issue for us, and we have met with them, we have looked at their process, and we are in the middle of figuring out how to address that so this doesn't happen. So technically, this grade on our CMAR doesn't mean we have to take any specific action or report any specific action to the DNR, but we're doing it anyway to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
Okay. All right. Can we get a motion in a second? Mike and Amanda? Any other discussion? Mike?
Yeah, it's probably a dumb question, but I'll say it anyway. What's the implications of BOD loading exceeding 100% of design capacity, and what, if anything, can be done to lower that?
BOD, you're
BOD,
talking about?
yeah.
BOD, generally that just means that if it were discharged, that's where you really have trouble, because then you start to impact the oxygen level in the stream that is discharging to. So it would essentially be that we couldn't treat it down to a level that is safe for Badfish Creek and for the animals and plants that live there.
So we're still able to treat it even though it's
Right.
above our design capacity?
Mhm.
Correct.
Okay, I noticed you had flagged that there were no energy studies performed on our pump lift stations. Given the amount of energy they consume, would this not be wise? And as a side note, are we by any chance, do we use variable frequency drives in those lift stations, or?
I'm actually going to let Jeff
Yeah,
handle
we,
this.
we saw your questions for the sustainability committee, and I do think we can look at that in the future. Typically with lift stations, at least the size we have, they're single speed, and only because you're waiting for that to fill up and then you pump it all at one single constant speed. VFDs tend to be much more efficient when you are throttling something, when you are wanting to pump a much longer time period. But for those situations, we have single speed drives, but we do implement quite a few VFDs in other applications, both at the plant and in our water system.
Okay.
All right, anybody else?
Yeah, short of all of a sudden you notice that there's something in the treatment plant that shouldn't be there, and tracing it back to a company. Is there any other method for businesses to be aware of what they shouldn't, short of don't pour this down the drain, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's the common sense part, you know, obviously don't dump a whole bunch of chlorine down and all that type of stuff. And, you know, we do have take Oak Hill Correction Institution, you know, we actually have a constant monitoring with that stream flow because they actually pay based off of strength of wastewater and volume of wastewater. As industries come to town, we evaluate those. Like if we had a dairy or something like that come to town, we would be looking at a similar monitoring type program. This is a situation that, you know, we started having some issues with foaming and stuff at the plant. We have kind of chased it around for years, and we finally ended up, talked about doing some nighttime monitoring and everything. It wasn't anything malicious. It's honestly, they just didn't realize, you know, how it was affecting our plant. And so that's why we're just working with them on either changing chemicals, changing process, or how they would discharge that to the system.
Great, thank you, Joe.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else? All right, so I think we got a motion and second.
Yeah.
Motion and second to approve the annual report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. H is one of our.
Just to be clear, that's also approving the resolution 2226.
Oh, yes.
So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that. That's the critical part
Okay.
of us.
Yeah.
getting
I should have read
submitted.
that. I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, all right.
Okay.
You're fine.
H is one of our cost agreements with Allison and Gregory Epp for property located at 5227 County Highway CC in the town of Oregon. Elise, this is just one of our standard agreements.
Right, yep, this is to cover the cost of their comprehensive plan amendment
Okay.
request.
All right. Can I get a motion, a second, and get it on the table? If there's any questions, Carleen and Derek? Any questions? Phil, look like you had one.
I did notice, because I used to live in the town, that there's a shared driveway there. I imagine that'll be dealt with at some point, because that will remain, evidently that property will remain in the town.
Right, the property behind the Epps property owned by Mr. Fink. This time, there's no application to annex that into the village at this
Okay.
point. There's a recorded easement to allow access to that shared driveway.
Oh, okay.
But whoever the Epps end up selling the property to and whatever development might occur, that will definitely be addressed, but there is a recorded easement to allow access on that property.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second on this one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. On to I was authorization to bid 2022 roadway maintenance improvement contract, crack fill and chip seal of various streets, pulverize and repave, mill, repave various streets and curb storm sewer improvements for South Baroque Avenue. Lauren, is this one of yours too?
This
Did
is.
you get a grant for this, Lauren?
No.
Not this one.
We got a grant, but it predated me, so Town
All
and
right,
Country did
well-
all the work on that
For
one.
the borough, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to say anything on it?
I'll just quickly go ahead and try to describe what's going on because there are a lot of numbers and it's probably a little bit confusing. So this is, I would say, multiple different projects that are all very related, tied into one. So as is described here, they've been split into contracts A and B. Contract A is very straightforward. It's just crack fill and chip sealing, roads that are in somewhat better condition. There are 13 of them, I believe, on the list. Contract B is probably two divided parts. So the first is both the pulverizing and repaving of 2 local courts, as well as mill and overlaying, let's see, I think it was 5 streets. That is pretty self-explanatory. There's no utility work involved. It's just different degrees of taking out old kind of crummy asphalt and putting down new asphalt. It also includes some of what we had talked about, I believe at the last meeting, those preliminary improvements to South Burr Oak Avenue, such that that project is ready to go when we get the WSDOT funded grant to pulverize and repave that next year. So that includes the ramp upgrades that we had talked about, and it also includes additional ramps. So there are 9 existing ramps out there, and WSDOT is having us put in an additional 7 ramps to essentially make sure that any time there is a ramp that goes somewhere, it has an answering ramp across the street. If you ever go down that road, there are many ramps to nowhere. Kind of makes sense based on the pedestrian traffic, but WSDOT was very clear that they wanted to make sure that it's very pedestrian accessible. It also includes some storm work out there that we had alluded to. So especially down at the Butternut intersection, there are some drainage issues there. It's not a huge problem, but it does cause icing in the winter, and it also can clearly cause some pavement deterioration. So that storm work is included in that contract B. There is, and this is the last part, also an alternate bid item in that contract B for yet another little section of storm, and that is coming from Walnut Street, the southern intersection with South Burr Oak, and tying into the culvert that goes across the street there. And that's more of the same. It's a little less noticeable than what's going on at Butternut, but you can see some ponding, some sediment that's collected at that intersection that could really be improved with just a couple of inlets. Not only would it hopefully protect the pavement in the future, but it would theoretically reduce icing and make that more pedestrian, especially accessible friendly. So we did put that in as an alternate just in case costs came back really high. You'll note that we put in a big contingency on this one just because of how weird construction prices have been. So we're trying to be very conservative with this overall project here. But this is all work that we would like included and that we do think is important going forward.
Okay. All right, can we get let's get it on the table. Let's get a motion in a second, and Amanda and Jenna. All right, anybody have any other questions for Lauren on this? Okay. All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. All right, we're on to 8, reports of committees, Plan Commission, and Elise, I'm right, we went over all these at the joint Village Board Plan Commission, did we not, or no?
We did, it was after the.
We didn't vote
board
on it.
adjourned, though.
Yeah, we,
So,
okay.
yeah, no vote happened and not all of you were.
Okay,
in
got it,
attendance.
okay, all right, so, let's take them one by one. 8A1 is preliminary and final plat for the woods at Bergamot, creating 6 single-family lots along Interlochen Drive. Plan Commission staff recommend motion to approve as presented. If we want to get it on, we can talk then. Phil's making a motion. Jenna, second. Anybody questions on this one? Yeah, Mike?
There was a meeting between the condo board, I believe, and the developer about preserving the trees along the property line. What was the final disposition? What's the position of the condo owners at this point?
So I think the folks that were in attendance was just, there's a few of them, but they were in support of moving forward with the change to just the 6 lots. There was a grading plan that was shared by Fiduciary, which wasn't included in the packet, but they did send to me after their neighborhood meeting, which shows the initial grading that the developer is going to do for the road, and then clearing some of the lots off Interlochen so that folks that are interested in purchasing that lot can kind of get a sense of where the building site might be. But there will be, I believe it's between 50 and 90 feet of trees remaining in the back of the lots, kind of adjacent to Legend Hills, so uphill on those lots. So at least initially, those trees will remain in a large swath, and then it's up to whoever purchases that lot and how they design their home and their backyard, if they want to take more down, so they can't hold them to that. There's no recorded trees, and then we conferred with our village attorney. He didn't recommend us requiring some kind of easement, which would be difficult to enforce, but the majority of the property owners were comfortable, and then nobody showed up at the planning commission meeting for comment or in opposition.
All right, anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second on this one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, we'll go to A2. This will have 2 votes because we need to suspend the rules. Let me just read it. Ordinance number 2210, ordinance adopting a zoning map amendment to rezone parcel number 165-0509-1046082-1, Lot 2, certified survey map number 14217, formerly known as Lot 504, the Bergamot. From Plan Development PD to Single Family Residential SR3 zoning, staff is recommending we'll suspend the rules and waive the first and second readings, and then we'll take up the ordinance. So if I can get a motion and a second to suspend the rules on this one. Amanda and Carleen, any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll take up the ordinance then, number 22-10. We get a motion and a second on this one. Mike and Amanda, any questions, discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll go to 3, which is a conditional use permit and agreement for an accessory structure greater than 1,000 square feet at 265/269 Park Street. Plan Commission staff recommendation is to approve as presented. I think that pretty self-explanatory, was in our packet. I'll take a motion in a second on this one. Carleen and Amanda, any questions on this one? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, down to 4. Again, we have a waive of the first and second. I'll read it. Ordinance number 2209, amending the Village of Oregon Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use map designations for 870/88 North Main Street from planned business to mixed residential, approximately 16 acres of park and open space property and approximately 11.9 acres of institutional property to approximately 21 acres of park and open space property and approximately 6.9 acres to institutional property at the northeast corner of North Alpine Parkway and Jefferson Street intersection, and approximately 46 acres of vacant land north of Mary Hill Drive and east of Prairie Mound Cemetery from single-family residential to planned neighborhood. So if we can get a motion to suspend the rules, Phil and Amanda. All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
I have a question.
On the.
Oh, no.
Can we,
Yeah.
let's suspend first.
Right, never mind.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, now, we'll take the ordinance, and Carly, let's get it on the table, and then you can
Yeah,
ask.
yeah.
Okay, so we're approving ordinance number 2209. Can we get a motion in a second? Amanda? And Derek? Okay, yeah, go ahead, Carly, your question.
So I have a question on the Alpine Parkway. We had talked about, and there were several of us who had talked about making that reserve or in conservancy all the way up to Netherwood Road. And there was my understanding, and I'm just confused. My understanding was that the Plan Commission said, wait till the comprehensive plan and do it then, and then this is the comprehensive plan, and it's not all the way up to Netherwood Road, so I'm confused. I thought that's what.
So, two different sort of comprehensive plans. This is an amendment to the comprehensive plan. We usually do this about once a year for projects as they come up that don't fit into what our future land use map shows. Next year, 2023, we'll be doing a full update to our comprehensive plan as well as our parks and open space plan. So I believe those are the plans that were sort of, those conversations have been deferred to more of a larger conversation about what do we intend for this property. I think it's important to, when we say conservancy, we define what that means and make sure that whatever, if that's the direction that we go, that any kinds of structures or activities that we imagine happening there would be allowed in any kind of conservancy, depending on how that's defined.
Okay, that was my first question. My second question is, are we leaving enough room for expansion of the cemetery?
There is no plan for expansion of the cemetery.
Is there a plan for another place in the village where there might be a cemetery? I mean, people die.
Yes. People are just dying to get up there. So we actually have a plan for up in the corner. I have a plan to actually create a columbarium of area that would increase at least the numbers that we have. But there will come a day where we will not have any more spaces for sale up there. We still have, I think, 700 or 800 spaces. That's without the columbarium. If we were to invest in that, we could easily have that go much higher.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking there's a lot of places in the village where you wouldn't be able, because of the water situation here, to have a cemetery.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 2209. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving along, we're on 5. Resolution number 2227, establishing public participation plan for proposed comprehensive plan amendments to change the future land use map, designations for a portion of 1002 Oregon Parks Avenue from two-family to mixed residential, and 5227 County Highway CC in the town of Oregon from neighborhood business to mixed residential. We'll get a motion in a second, and we'll get her on the table. Amanda and Carleen. All right, got her on the table. Any discussion on this one from anybody? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 9, unfinished business. Items are for discussion, possible action. 9A is continued review of draft of Chapter 2 of the Village Code and Village Board Handbook. And I guess probably Martin, is that you?
Yeah, so we
Okay.
handed this out at the last meeting and had some discussion, some feedback and questions. I addressed, I think, all the questions and feedback that came up from the last meeting in the draft of Chapter 2. I still need to work on the handbook yet, and then I'm planning on getting Chapter 1 to all of you at the July 11th meeting. So if there's any feedback on Chapter 2 or the handbook at this time, I'd like to get that.
Okay, Mike's got something.
Section 2.10, subsection 5, termination of debate. From the previous iteration of Chapter 2, it was changed from a majority to 2/3. What was the rationale for that?
It's probably it's the model ordinance language from the league that recommends 2/3. So if there's a preference here to keep it to majority, we can keep it to majority.
Well, it would seem to make sense to have it at 2/3 if we were on a vote that required 2/3 to pass. something, but most of our votes require a simple majority, so it would seem to make sense to terminate discussion with a simple majority.
It's fine with me. That's what the board is okay with.
This would be essentially called a question, Martin, or?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Ending debate, taking
Yeah.
a vote to just end debate.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Is it?
Bear with me 1 second.
So Candy says Robert's rules is 2/3 vote. That's what you're looking for.
That's probably where it's coming.
That's probably where they got it from, yeah.
Yeah.
No, okay, I'm not gonna die on this hill. For sections 2.12.1b and 2.12.2 regarding membership on committees, right now it's written to have the village president choose the members, but we always have a vote of the village board. There's no reference there to that.
Not for standing committees. Standing committees have.
This is not just standing committees, this is also for section
Oh, the special?
2.12.2, which is, I believe, special.
Yep. So you would prefer it be a vote of the board as well?
Sure.
To confirm?
I would.
Okay.
Not that I don't trust you, Randy.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
Oh, I like that idea too. I mean, it just means that we have confidence in those people.
Right.
If that's a vote of confidence is always a good thing.
Are we also at this point discussing beyond chapter 2, discussing the handbook?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My suggestion would be we might want to include chapter 2 in the handbook, since it's really about how the board is organized. Let's see, hold on a second. These are minor points, but the rewrite for the meeting agenda and packet policy, where you put in the stuff for consent agendas and things. Section 4, subsection B, point 4, references paragraph 2B, which doesn't exist. I'm assuming that should be 4B. And you have 2 sections that are Roman number 3 and 2 sections that are Roman numeral number 4, which is a little confusing. So you might just want to revisit your section numbering. And I'm done picking.
All right, very good.
So just to clarify on the committee appointments, did you have an interest in changing the standing committee appointment from just where it's village president now, it would continue under this chapter?
I'm more interested in
Just the
the
special committees?
In the special committees.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Since it seems like the village president discusses with the
Oh,
board
we do
members and
bring,
what.
yeah, yeah.
So,
All right, anybody else? Stuff for Martin? You're good, or what do you want? Go ahead.
Well, let me read that section once. So, special committees, the board may, by resolution, provide for the creation and organization of special committees, as it may from time to time deem necessary, and with such duties and authorities it deems appropriate. Appointments to these special committees shall be made by the president unless otherwise specified by the village board. So, the power to create the committee and set its organization and authority is vested to the village board in that paragraph. It just defaults that if you don't decide how to make those appointments, it defaults to the village president making that appointment.
yeah, but a lot of the special committees are ongoing committees that get appointed year after year after year. They've already been set up and established by the board. The membership, at least my reading of this was somewhat unclear. The membership of it seemed to be appointed by the village board president without reference to participation from the board at all.
Well, I believe that some of those committees are set up such that the language reads, appointment by the village president, subject to the approval of the village board. And so I'm wondering if Trustee Wunsch is suggesting that we change all committees to that, or I'm a little confused, I guess.
Which language are you referring to?
Well, I can't quote the language, but I know that some of the committees are set up so that the village president makes the appointments subject to the approval of the village board, which we usually do at the organizational meeting. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I guess I would say for all special committees, for all non-board committees, that the village board have the ability to vote membership up or down.
So that would be a change from the current practice?
Well, my experience on my vast experience on the village board has been that every time that we have made appointments to special committees, it's been voted on by the village board, regardless of the committees.
It is the current practice, it's just not in writing.
Correct.
That is the current practice. What you said is the current practice, what he said is the current practice, but it's not in writing in the handbook.
I see.
Maybe
Well,
it
if it's the
should-
current practice,
Should get it in writing.
I guess, yeah, that makes sense to
We'll
me.
put it in writing.
If that's what we're doing, then, yeah. It, you know, it avoids disagreements later.
Yep.
If it's in writing, so.
Good catch.
Or
All right.
potentially avoids disagreements, I should say.
Just shifts them maybe to.
Yeah, right.
Anybody else? Martin, you're good? You got direction?
Yep, we'll
Any
keep working on
questions
this
for you?
through the end of the summer.
Okay. All right, so we're on to 10. New business items are for discussion and possible action. 10A is review of prosecution services for municipal court and determine next steps. Who's got that? Martin,
So,
you?
Our attorney, our prosecuting municipal attorney, Tim Spearschneider, who's been around for quite some time, is retiring beginning of next year. And so we need to get a new prosecutor. So our recommendation is to go on the market and see what we can find.
Okay. You want a motion for that, or?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Carleen and Amanda. Any other discussion on that? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 10B is direction on 2023 annual budget. It's almost here already. Martin, I think you gave us some potential
so
timelines.
Yep, we're on our way. It's we're almost starting this process up again. We'll be talking about the capital plan at the next meeting and the couple meetings after that. But this is for direction on the operations budget, so the annual budget. Lisa will be getting ready to send worksheets out to department heads and other village entities. So if there's anything that you want to give as far as direction that we can pass along, then we can do that.
All right. Anybody have anything? Not seeing anything. All right. I guess you're okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. 10C is future agenda. What, did I do something wrong? What?
No.
Oh,
No.
you're raising your hand.
Yeah, for
Oh, you got a
future-
future agenda.
yeah.
Okay. Future agenda items. This item gives board members the opportunity to place items in new business on future agenda for discussion.
I just wanted to be really clear that we're putting pickleball on the future agenda
Yeah.
and Carlene's Juneteenth recommendation for discussion or action, whatever.
Yeah, and Derek, you got something?
Just piggyback on that a little bit. I'd like to maybe possibly revisit Jenna's comments about the splash pad as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that is part of a bigger discussion about how to spend that money. So put that on the agenda, and then we can talk about all the different ways, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. All right, looks like we're at 11. We're going closed session, business. And Candy, am I right? We have to do a voice vote to go to closed session, correct?
Yeah, you have to make a motion.
All right. All right, can we get a motion by Jenna and to go to closed session, and second by Carleen. All right. Candy, you want to do a vote?
Yes. Van Campen,
Yes.
Belo,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Glish,
Yes.
Wunsch,
Yes.
and Peschel.
Yes.
Okay.